We now have a Department of Justice that is essentially the president's political enforcer. It's a huge change. It's a very dangerous change that goes against our democratic ideals.
The Department of Justice has indicted former FBI Director James Comey.
Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually.
Donald Trump directly singled out James Comey for charges that seem to be unfounded.
Now that James Comey has been indicted, who is the next person on your list in this retribution?
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt.
The grand jury has indicted New York Attorney General Letitia James on a fraud charge.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost.
With the indictments of his perceived political enemies, former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, President Donald Trump has once again broken new ground, and not in a good way. Trump personally called for these prosecutions and installed a loyalist who would pursue them, despite career officials' determination that there was not enough evidence to do so. On social media, Trump declared Comey and James guilty as hell, and urged Attorney General Pam Bondi and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia to indict them, saying, "Justice must be served now." Traditionally, presidents do not interfere in specific prosecutions. That is incredibly important because it helps Americans have faith that people are being prosecuted only based on the law and evidence supporting the charges against them, not to pursue a political vendetta.
I'm Noah Bookbinder. I'm the president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, or CREW. CREW is a nonpartisan watchdog that works to promote democracy, hold government accountable, and ensure that it's working on behalf of the people, not special interests. The way the Department of Justice has worked has really changed fundamentally during Donald Trump's presidency, particularly in this second term. One of the kind of most obvious and most fundamental things that has changed is that Donald Trump and Pam Bondi, as his attorney general, have just gotten rid of parts of the department that do things that they don't like, that they don't want to see there.
To prosecute one's perceived opponents simply because you want to is the stuff of kings and dictators, not American presidents.
Another really fundamental way that the department has changed under Donald Trump is that it used to be, and was for many years across both political parties, that there was a real separation between the Department of Justice and the White House. There was a sense that on policy issues, on what kinds of cases to prioritize, what types of laws to advocate for, the Department of Justice, like every other executive branch department, would reflect the priorities of the president and of the White House. But when it came to criminal prosecutions, the Department of Justice should be entirely separate from the White House.
The James and Comey prosecutions were brought despite career professionals' determination that they were not supported by the facts and the law. Reporting has made clear that career prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia, which is known for being a hard-charging office, did not believe either of those cases were sufficiently supported to warrant indictment. Even Eric Siebert,
the president said he wanted to get rid of Eric Siebert, head of the Eastern District of Virginia.
The U.S. attorney appointed by Trump himself, refused to bring the cases. Trump forced Siebert out and replaced him with a loyalist, Lindsay Halligan, who previously represented Trump personally in his criminal cases and had no prosecutorial experience. Halligan moved to indict Comey and James despite the recommendation of career prosecutors.
The indictment of James Comey for no crime. Not a single prosecutor in that office in Virginia would sign the indictment, not a single one, until President Trump sent his personal lawyer to take over that office, because only she would sign the indictment.
The president should have no input into who gets prosecuted, who doesn't get prosecuted, what they're charged with, what kind of sentences are recommended, any of that kind of thing, because we want a justice system that applies equally to everybody. That's all out the window now.
These kinds of political prosecutions are incompatible with democracy and highly dangerous. And they're particularly galling as we see Trump's allies often escape accountability. Consider Tom Homan, Trump's current border czar, who allegedly accepted $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents. When Trump entered office again, the DOJ shut down the investigation into whether he accepted bribes. But we saw this pattern start in Trump's first administration. Michael Flynn twice pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his communication with Russia. In 2020, the DOJ dropped the charges. Roger Stone, a longtime Trump ally, was convicted on charges including lying to Congress and witness tampering. In 2020, Trump commuted his 40-month prison sentence.
Donald Trump pardoned people who were politically aligned with him. The sort of line between the presidency and the president's political interest on the one hand, and the Department of Justice and the choices that it makes in criminal enforcement, which was always hugely important to our system, has all but evaporated. That is a fundamental change.
In contrast, Trump has spent years demanding and now securing criminal charges for his perceived political enemies. These aren't mere details. They're the difference between a functioning democracy and a slip into authoritarianism.
Every totalitarian relies on the justice system to punish dissent, but also to immunize illegality for loyalists. That's the deal you get in a totalitarian state. If you speak out against the government, well, then the legal system comes crashing down on you. But if you are loyal to the government, then you can get away with crimes.
We have a system of separation of powers that sets out to make sure that no one part of the government becomes too powerful. And particularly it's aimed at the president. This country fought a war to become free from a monarchy. The last thing we wanted was a king in this country.
If the president can decide which of his enemies he wants prosecuted and make it happen, regardless of whether such a prosecution is supported by the facts in the law, then none of us are safe. If Americans need to worry that they will be prosecuted just because those in charge don't like them, that could chill dissent, and it's a very worrying signal for our democracy. It's a short and direct line from presidentially directed political prosecutions to the breakdown of our republic. If we write this off as business as usual, our country and the protections we take for granted will be gone before we know it.
Our system has never been perfect, but there has generally been a widespread respect for our system of justice and a sense that, by and large, across the board, people are treated the same. Once you have the president coming in and saying, these people should be targeted by prosecutors, by law enforcement, by the courts, because they are my political opponents, and these people should not be targeted because they are my political allies, then people start to lose faith that the justice system works correctly and that it works fairly. There's a sense that whoever's president is just going to decide who goes to prison, who gets investigated, who gets charged. And we're no longer going to believe that there's actually support for those charges. And it's going to have to be very deliberate and careful work to restore guardrails that have been dismantled by this president and this administration. We're not going to be in a place where a new president and a new administration of either party could come in and say, we're just going to go back to the way things used to be, because so much damage will have already been done to Americans' faith in the system. There are going to be so many guardrails that have already been knocked down that anybody in a position of power will know that they can just disregard in the future. So it's going to have to be done in a large scale, very well thought out way.
The authoritarian takeover isn't coming. It's here. We're in the middle of it. But it is not too late for everybody to see it and for us to stop it.
When we get out of this situation and when we see the extent of the damage, we're going to need a fundamental rethinking of how our government works and a really vast set of reforms aimed at making sure that our government is responsive to us as Americans and that no one can come in and abuse that system for their own gain. We're all going to have to be in it together to make that happen.
In a democracy, loyalty or opposition shouldn't decide who faces criminal charges. Together, we must demand a justice system that applies the law without prejudice.